evening had a way of slowing everything down inside the small traditional home. The wooden walls creaked faintly, as if they too were settling in for rest. A kettle whistled gently before being taken off the stove, and the air filled with the warm scent of chamomile. Grandmother moved slowly, not because she wanted to, but because her body demanded it now. Each step measured, each turn of her wrist deliberate. She poured the tea with steady hands that trembled just slightly, enough to make the boy notice. "Careful, Grandma," he said, in a voice so soft it carried more concern than command. A smile tugged at her lips. She placed the teapot down and slid the cup toward him. "I've poured tea 1,000 times, little bird. My hands may shake, but they remember." The boy giggled at the nickname. He was only 7, small enough to still fit snugly in the crook of her arm, but already full of questions about everything around him. His hair was messy from playing outside, his cheeks flushed with the remnants of sunlight. He took the cup carefully, imitating her deliberate movements, and sipped as though he were a grown man. The taste made him scrunch his nose. "It's a little bitter." She laughed, a low rolling laugh that filled the room with warmth. "So is life, sometimes." The boy tilted his head. "Like medicine?" "Exactly." She leaned back against the worn cushion of her chair. Her eyes, though tired, carried a light of mischief. "Bitter, but it makes us stronger." The child studied her face as if it were a storybook filled with lines and symbols he had yet to learn. His gaze lingered on the fine wrinkles fanning from the corners of her eyes, on the softness of her cheeks, on the way her lips curved downward even when she smiled. "Grandma?" he asked suddenly. "Why do you always look like you're remembering something?" The question hung in the air. Outside Sikkedat, Das hummed in the thickening dusk, and the golden light bent low across the floor, painting it in long shadows. She closed her eyes for a moment, inhaling as though steadying herself before a long climb. "Because I am," she whispered. The boy leaned forward. "What are you remembering?" Her hands, resting on her lap, tightened together. She opened them slowly, palms facing upward, as if offering him something invisible. "Memories, child. Memories are what keep the old alive. They sit with us like ghosts at the table, reminding us of what we gained and what we lost." His small hand reached for hers. He pressed his fingers against her palm, astonished at how paper-thin the skin felt, how cool yet comforting. "Tell me, Grandma, please." She turned to look at him fully. His eyes, wide and unclouded, seemed to plead for a story, but not the kind with dragons or princes. He wanted her story. And so she began. Her voice lowered, weaving through the room like smoke. "I was once your age," she said, "a little girl with bare feet and a heart full of dreams." Her eyes glistened as if the evening light had spilled into them. "But the world I grew up in was not so gentle as yours." The boy nestled closer, his head resting against her arm, his ear pressed as though trying to catch every heartbeat of her words. As she spoke, the dimly lit room seemed to waver, and for a moment the air was filled with the colors of another time. A flash of a sunlit field, a barefoot girl chasing after a kite made of cloth scraps, the sound of distant laughter, the rustle of wheat against a summer wind. The grandmother's voice carried them both there. The boy's breathing slowed as he leaned against her. His fingers curled loosely around hers, small against the landscape of her hand. The room was silent except for the creak of the old clock on the wall and the faint song of cicadas. Grandmother's eyes wandered toward the window. The sun had nearly dipped below the horizon now, and the world outside glowed in muted amber. She drew in a slow breath, and when she exhaled, her voice carried the weight of a door opening onto the past. I was born in a house smaller than this one, she said softly. The roof leaked when it rained, and in winter the cold crept in through the cracks in the walls. But to me, it was the whole world. I didn't know we were poor. All I knew was the earth beneath my feet and the sky above my head. Her words seemed to summon the images into being. The dim little room with its uneven floor. A mother stirring soup that smelled faintly of cabbage. A father, already tired by the time he returned from the fields. His shirt damp with sweat. His hands blackened with soil. And the fields, she went on, her voice thickening with memory. Endless fields of wheat that whispered when the wind ran through them. I used to run there barefoot, even when the stalks scratched my legs. I would laugh and chase the sound of the wind, thinking I could catch it. The boy's eyes widened. He saw it too. A small girl, hair tied with string, legs skinny and quick, chasing nothing but joy itself. Was it fun? He asked softly. Her lips curved. Oh yes, childhood is always fun until you learn the meaning of hunger. The boy frowned, the word strange in his mouth. Hunger? Yes. She nodded, her gaze fixed on something only she could see. Not the kind you feel when you forget your lunch or when dinner is late. A hunger that gnaws and gnaws until you can't think of anything else. It was my first lesson. That the world could be cruel. The flashback deepened. She was 6 again, sitting by the wooden table, staring at a bowl that held more water than broth. Her stomach cramped. Yet she smiled when her mother slid the bowl toward her. Her mother always gave her the larger portion, though the grandmother knew now, looking back through the lens of years, that it had cost her dearly. Did your mama go hungry? The boy whispered. Her voice faltered, then steadied. Yes, child. She gave me her food so I would grow. Mothers do that. The boy pressed her hand tighter. That's sad. It was love. She smiled faintly. The kind of love that doesn't speak, but gives. Love that costs something. The room fell quiet. The boy's chest rose and fell as he tried to understand this kind of love. Heavier, deeper than the hugs and kisses he knew. Her eyes softened as another image rose unbidden. Her father, bent low in the fields, his body strong but already wearing down under years of toil. Your great-great-grandfather was a proud man, she continued. He worked from dawn until the stars appeared, and yet he came home with barely enough to keep us alive. Still, he never complained. He would sit by the fire and hum an old song, a tune his own father taught him. I can still hear it sometimes, in my sleep. Her voice grew faint, almost melodic, and for a moment the boy thought he could hear it too. The low hum of a tired man holding on to dignity through music. The boy tilted his head, studying her. Were you happy, Grandma? She smiled, the kind of smile that carried both yes and no. Children find happiness in small things. I had no shoes, but I had the earth. I had no toys, but I had the sky. And when my father hummed that song, I felt safe, as though nothing bad could ever touch me. The boy's eyes sparkled. "Can you hum it for me?" She paused, her throat tightening. Then, owly, she let the sound escape her lips. A trembling, simple melody, fragile as glass, but filled with warmth. The boy leaned closer, mesmerized. The boy stirred, uneasy at the tremor in his grandmother's last words. Her hand was still in his, warm yet fragile, like a leaf pressed between the pages of a book. He leaned closer. "What happened, Grandma?" She exhaled slowly, her eyes glinting with something between sorrow and resolve. "I lost my father when I was still a child." The boy blinked, stunned by the bluntness of her confession. His lips parted as if to ask more, but she continued, her voice lowering into the rhythm of remembrance. Flashback. The Fields, 1940s, or an era fitting her age. The sun burned hotter than usual that summer. The fields shimmered in waves of heat, and the wheat bowed low as though exhausted. She remembered standing barefoot in the dirt, her small hands shading her eyes as she searched for her father. He was out there, bending, straightening, bending again. A silhouette against the relentless light. "I thought he was invincible," she said, her gaze fixed beyond the boy, beyond the room. "He was the strongest man I knew. His shoulders carried the world, or so I believed. But even the strongest shoulders can break." The boy's fingers squeezed hers. "Did he get sick?" "Yes." Her voice cracked slightly. Too many years of working the land without rest. His lungs weakened, his body worn. There were no doctors nearby, no money for medicine. We had only prayers and the will to endure. The flashback sharpened. Her father coughing at night, the sound rattling like dry leaves. Her mother sitting by the bedside, holding his hand as if sheer grip could keep him tethered to the world. The girl, young grandmother, standing in the doorway, afraid to step closer, afraid to see her pillar crumbling. "I remember the night," she whispered. "The night he left us." The lamp burned low, casting shadows on the walls. My mother was humming his song, the one I hummed for you. Her voice broke halfway through, but she kept singing, as though the tune might carry him safely across the river between life and death. Her voice faltered, the weight of memory pressing down. I crept to his side. I touched his hand, calloused, rough, but already cooling. He opened his eyes once more and looked at me, not with fear, not with pain, but with sorrow, sorrow that he could not stay. And then she closed her eyes. The boy swallowed, whispering, "He went to heaven?" A tear slid silently down her cheek. "Yes, little one. He went where I could not follow, and that was the first time I learned what it meant to lose." The small house after bedtime, the days that followed blurred together in her mind, yet some images remained sharp as glass. Her mother dressed in black, moving like a ghost through the house. The silence at the table, broken only by the clatter of bowls. The fields, untended, their golden stalks bending and falling. "I became older overnight," she said softly. "I was still a child, but grief ages you in ways nothing else can. I learnt to fetch water, to cook simple meals, to care for my younger brother. Childhood slipped away like a kite torn loose from its string. The boy's eyes brimmed. Were you scared? Her smile was sad but tender. Yes, but I had no choice. When life takes something from you, it leaves you with a choice. Break or bend. I chose to bend. She lifted her wrinkled hand, showing him the ridges of her skin. These hands first learned strength, not in play, but in survival. I carried wood, I hauled water, I comforted my brother when he cried for our father. And at night, when no one could hear me, I cried too. The boy pressed his cheek against her arm. I don't like that story, he said quietly. Her eyes softened, and she kissed the top of his head. I don't either, but it is mine. And sometimes, child, the stories we do not like are the ones that make us who we are. Outside, the evening deepened. The cicadas grew louder, the shadows longer. The past lingered in the room like smoke, refusing to dissipate. Do you want to stop? The boy's eyes were still clouded from the weight of her story. His small fingers clung to hers as if to anchor her to the present. She noticed the worry etched across his innocent face and smoothed her thumb gently over his knuckles. Do not frown so, little bird, she whispered. Life is not only sorrow. Even in the darkest night, a spark of hope can appear. His expression softened. Like a candle? Yes. She smiled faintly. Like a candle. And sometimes that candle is another person. Flashback. A market day. She was 15 when she first felt it. The unfamiliar flutter of her heart that both frightened and thrilled her. The memory painted itself clearly. A crowded village market, the smell of spices mingling with the earthiness of livestock, the voices of vendors shouting above one another. She remembered holding her mother's basket, half empty because there were few coins to fill it. She had grown lean from long hours in the fields, her hands already calloused, her eyes older than her years. Yet she was still a girl, still capable of wonder. And then she saw him. He was not a prince, not even a wealthy man. She told the boy, her eyes distant, just a farmer's son like me. But he had a way of smiling, as though the world could never defeat him. His shirt was patched, his shoes worn, but when he laughed, when he laughed, it was like hearing the river in spring, yeah? The boy grinned shyly. Did you like him? She chuckled, shaking her head at the memory. At first, I was angry. He carried my mother's basket when he saw it was too heavy for me. I told him I didn't need help, but he only smiled wider and said, Then let me carry it for your mother instead. Her laughter softened into something tender. That was the first time I felt what it meant to be seen. Not as a burden, not as a poor girl, but as someone worth noticing. Evening talks, she too, though the boy, how the young man, whose name was Elias, would find excuses to walk by their house. Sometimes he brought bread from his family's oven. Other times he carried water from the well when he saw her struggling. They would talk in the evenings, under the wide sky painted with stars. He asked me once what I dreamed of, she recalled. I didn't know how to answer. Dreaming felt like a luxury when survival took all of our strength. But he said dreams are what keep us alive. A body can starve, he told me, but a soul starves faster without hope. The boy's brow furrowed. Did you dream, Grandma? She smiled faintly. That night, I did. I dreamed of a life where laughter was not stolen by sorrow. A life where my children would never know hunger the way I had. And though I didn't tell him, I dreamed of a life where Elias's smile was always near. Her mother's eyes, her voice lowered, tinged with bitter sweetness. My mother saw the way I looked at him. She said little, only that love was both a gift and a burden. Choose carefully, she warned me, for the one you give your heart to will shape your life more than you know. The boy tilted his head. Was she right? Oh, she was. Her eyes glistened with memory. Love gives you strength you did not know you had. But it also demands sacrifices you never imagined you could endure. She let the words linger, her voice heavy with foreshadowing. Present frame. The boy's grip tightened around her hand. Did you marry him? He asked eagerly, leaning forward, eyes wide with anticipation. The grandmother chuckled softly, though a shadow passed across her face. Patience, little bird. Stories are like rivers. You cannot rush them, or you will miss the way they bend and flow. But did you? He insisted. Her lips curved, though her eyes softened with a distant sorrow. Yes, I married him, and for a time my world changed. As filled with joy, she paused, her gaze drifting to the dimming window where the last threads of sunlight clung stubbornly to the horizon. But joy and sorrow often walk hand in hand. You cannot in